I need y'all to listen to this. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, red, blue, black, white, check this out.
Separate from school choice, we're going to take the Department of Education, close it. I'm going to close it. We'll have one person, could be you if you decide to retire.
Okay, Mr. President, here's what bothers
central casting.
Here's what bothers me about that. So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money.
3 things about that clip I want to share with you. Number 1, Donald Trump said that he wants to close the Department of Education. The Department of Education funds the majority of our public schools. Matter of fact, not the majority, all of our public schools. If the Department of Education ceased to exist, you're going to see school closures all around this country, especially in those areas that need schools the most. Underfunded areas, the underrepresented areas, the poor areas will see their schools close. And what's going to take place? Only options will be private schools. How many of you out there can afford to send your child to a private school, pay $10,000 to $20,000 a year for them to go to kindergarten? Really? The second thing, did you hear what the interviewer asked him? He asked him, well, what are you going to do about these schools that start teaching about this country was built on the back of slaves and black history and things like that? And Donald Trump said that he's going to stop giving them money. He's basically saying if schools start teaching the truth about history, you're not going to receive money from the federal government. We're going to close you. We're going to shut you down. Does this sound like a textbook out of Project 2025? And the third and last thing, you got one black man on that panel sitting there with him. And what does he do? Not a damn thing. He sits there and laughs and kiki and ha-has, but doesn't check him on any of this. Anything that he said that was racist, anything that he said as far as shutting down schools for teaching the truth, he just sat there. And that is textbook of a lot of these black men that we see nowadays. That's why I'm so hard on black men, because a lot of us are silent when racism is slapping us right in the face. You won't even stand for the people who have raised you. You won't even stand for the people who have died so that you can sit in that seat. But it's black men like that I got a real issue with. We got to do better. And this is not just for black men. This is for anybody who's voting for Donald Trump. If after seeing this video and you see that he wants to shut down the Department of Education, when you're sending your kids to a public school, when you see that he wants to cut funding to schools who teach the truth, when you see that and you still support him, you're supporting racism, you're supporting misogyny, you're supporting all these things that you say that you're against because you're what? A Christian. Well, act like a Christian, act like Jesus, and don't support something that is opposite of what Jesus would be.
Well, let's kind of take a little examination to what occurred regarding this election, this election cycle, and everything that goes with it, because this is the chickens coming home to roost. Before we discuss, I'm going to let you see a little bit of a piece that I grabbed off of YouTube regarding what Bernie Sanders had to say about this cycle.
As no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them. He goes on to say, while the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. He points out that the very rich are doing phenomenally well, but 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and there is more income and wealth inequality than ever before. He adds, unbelievably, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. Now, that's a point those of you who've been watching my video channel will know I've been keen to emphasize in my coverage of the US elections. You can't understand what the hell is going on in America without looking at that basic statistic. It's ridiculous. Half a century. Way before I was born, I'm a geriatric millennial. And tens of millions of American workers would be better off when Richard Nixon was still in the White House. He goes on, Bernie Sanders, to say that many young people will have a worse standard of living than their parents, despite technological improvements and exploding worker productivity, and also cites the lack of universal healthcare and the highest prescription drug prices on earth. While American workers are unique amongst the rich countries in not guaranteeing paid family and medical leave. He also rightly points to the US continuing to support the Israeli regime in defiance of the majority of the American population, despite all the horrors it's unleashing. He also warns that big money interests and well-paid consultants who run the show in the Democratic Party aren't going to learn the real lessons from what he calls, rightly, this disaster, or understand the pain and political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing, or have any ideas about taking on the oligarchy in the US. But he asked those concerned about grassroots democracy and economic justice to stay tuned, because he promises some very serious political discussions. Well, I'm certainly very interested to hear what those will be, and I hope he will help build a new movement, which won't be the...
Okay. Number one, I find it interesting that people that don't live in this country, and I've had an opportunity to talk to a few because of the job I do a part-time black card limo work, and I do airport rotations. People are here from Canada. I met people from Spain. I met people from Japan. I met people from Brazil. I met people from England, quite a few people from England. Met a couple that actually lives here in the United States, but they're from England. And all of them that I have talked to, one, are not impressed by Donald Trump in the least bit, and they think that Donald Trump is bad for the United States. I personally agree with them, and I believe that that is true. And what's more dangerous than Donald Trump himself is the team of people that he has surrounded himself with. And I heard a guy say something that I thought was also very true, that this was a battle between corporate individuals, which is basically the Democratic Party, the corporate side of the Republican Party, and they all work and kind of gel to the same people. You got billionaires that have so much money they can give to both sides, and then figure out where, you know, where they're going to fall into place to do what it is they want to do, which is not be regulated, not be taxed properly, and those things mean more to them than the survival of America or the way in which we could flow to become a better society, whether it's the American, Western countries, or the whole planet as a whole. I think a lot of these individuals are very short-sighted. They don't care about that. They just want to plug their money in, secure their money for their future family. If they could live forever and keep doing what they were doing, they would do it. So having said that, Bernie Sanders was completely and utterly ripped off by the DNC, the DCCC. It's Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's Tom Perez, it's people that were part of the Clinton administration that goes back to the original one, to the Clinton people that worked for Hillary at one point, according to Donna Brazile. The DNC was broke. I think that was somewhere, I want to say, in 2012, 2013, 2014. And Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation moved in to give them the money, but also was calling the shots. First giant mistake that you could see coming from a mile away if you talk to any regular people is that no one wanted to see Hillary Clinton run for the presidency in 2016 over Bernard Sanders. But you corporate Democrats, you ran right in there and you shoved Hillary up the so-called left and Democrats' ass. And what you got was a hard turd back, because at the end of the day, you found out that even though she won the popular vote, the Electoral College did not go her way. And that's a separate discussion, but one that we definitely need to discuss to move forward to try to bring back the semblance of democracy, because we don't have it. We have a fast-leaning plutocracy that's now going to be somewhat fascist. If, you know, the Steve Bannon, Miller, what's his name, Steve Miller, or whatever that, I mean, not Steve Miller, but the Miller guy that's, I forget his last name, Stephen Miller, and all these type of people that have the super MAGA ideology. It's a mixture of, it's all like, you know, we get everything, you get nothing, but we're pretending like we're going to do something for you. And it's going to fall apart pretty freaking fast, I think. It's going to be a car crash, I think, because the regular conservative Republicans that Trump had in 2016 to 2020, after, I mean, as he fired them along the way, I mean, I don't know what the count was, but, you know, there's no person that's been a president in this modern American history from the first president that I think fired that many people. I think you would have to go back to the 1800s to find anything that even came close to that, and I don't think you would even find it then. We have to take money out of politics. If we don't do it, we have no choice whatsoever. You had approximately 71 million on the red side and somewhere around 67, 68 million on the blue side that voted. The total population of the United States is supposed to be like 365 million people. That's quite a large number of people. You're looking at almost half the population that did not vote. There's a lot of distinct reasons for that, and that's because people just simply have given up. They don't trust either side. They think either side is just full of it. We get all the platitudes and cult of personality, but we don't have a real actionable plan. And the unfortunate part is that the Democrats were perfectly poised after the Obama administration and having two successful terms behind each other. And they had a real opportunity to really make things happen. But in order to do so, they were going to have to actually shut down all these corporate Goldman Sachs people, all these bums that show up and they suck the air out of the room because they live in a California, Washington, New York, Florida bubble of richness and any of the other beltway areas. These people do not live the regular lives of most Americans. And when you have the complete and utter corruption of the lobbying system, which should be done away with. Citizens United, gone. Lobbying in every aspect gone, with serious federal laws that say, hey, if we catch you doing something under the table, if you're giving a Supreme Court justice a bus and your name is Harlan Crow and you're a billionaire allegedly, then you can't accept those gifts from anyone at any time. You've basically, because of your stupidity and your corruption in the Democratic Party, you hand-delivered the White House to Trump, not once, but now twice. And it's because of your unwillingness to put forth a program and a candidate that is of real substance, is going to help regular people, the people who need it the most and been needing it the most. As you heard, this gentleman is from England talking about how real wages are stagnated for 50 years and that the prices of everything just keep going up and up and up. But there's no break for the regular working guy. But the expectation is always there for everybody to stop at every stoplight, for everybody to file their taxes, and to show up to vote for 1 year at one time every 4 years, and besides the midterms and your local elections, and get nothing for it over and over and over again. And I'm especially talking about the Democratic Party. And as a person who has voted mostly in the Democratic Party my whole adult life, I'm A, ready to be an independent. B, I'm wish to God and hope to God that there'll be a real independent third party, working class party that comes to bear, and that the people that get involved with running the machine of that are not these retreads that come from these corporate side of Democratic leanings. I don't want any corporate people in there whatsoever. And if I do have a corporate person in there, I want them only to be there to show us how we have to protect ourselves from them in order for us to have the kind of election process that we're supposed to have. Number one, we should at the very least make the election day a paid holiday, you know, and you're off that day, and bring your family and your kids so that they can understand the process. Maybe it might get moved to a Saturday or a Sunday. You take the money out of it, you shorten the cycle time of how much. You don't get to be in the most important office in our country, and you're in your second year, and all you do is go around and talk about how you're going to be reelected. This was a lot of what took place with Trump's 4 years. The handling of the COVID, I mean, what's the most that you could give Donald Trump in a grade score between A and F minus? I think the best you might be able to do is D minus. And I'm pretty sure, I feel very comfortable in saying that if Bernie Sanders, who should have been the president and had all this energy and steam behind it, if the Democratic Party had got behind him like they were supposed to and didn't cheat him out of his primaries in Iowa and absolutely in California and absolutely in New York. And if you ever want to have a closer understanding to what that is, you need to see a documentary called Bernie Blackout. And it's pretty funny when I see somebody like Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow or Joe Scarborough or you know, the only person that actually acted like who they really are was Dana Bash, who was asking Bernie Sanders back in 2016 that he was against women because of something that somebody else said in regards to Hillary Clinton. You better get your arms around the idea that the country is obviously not ready for a female president. And if you had any hopes of making Kamala Harris on such short notice really get the ear of the people, you had to do the one thing that you don't have any guts to do, and that is to turn off the money spigot to Mr. Netanyahu and his Zionist team of killers that are completely pushing us towards a massive, possibly World War III scenario in the Middle East. Mr. Netanyahu, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people in the world, should probably be brought under charges. And there are already a lot of international investigators and people that look into what took place on October 7th. And there is a money trail that goes directly from the Israelis to Hamas that's been there for years. And with a public speaking where Netanyahu says, hey, we got to give money to Hamas so that way there's always there's not a one political entity, because the other one is always being influenced by money. The same way that AIPAC influences all our decision-making process here and is doing it right now, has done it with both sides. I saw another video where Mr. Netanyahu was bragging about how he has a thumb on American political power on their backs, and he does whatever he wants to do, and they're not gonna do anything but support him. Now, the one thing that's quietly not been talked about is there's a lot of protestation by Israelites in the country that, one, don't like this whole program. They're very well-educated people overall, so they have a good understanding of what took place. They found out that one of the data points was that the IDF commander for the area in which the Hamas attack happened wanted to turn down the paperwork for a music festival that was going to be there. And somehow or another, someone up on top outvoted him to make sure the music festival was there. They knew when they were coming, they knew how they were coming, and they put their own citizens out there in order to achieve a means. And that's what you call state-sponsored terrorism. That's a not a symbol, but that is the type of state terrorism where the state knows that something is going down and doesn't do anything about it. If anything, it's even worse because they invite it to happen so that they can have a reaction. The ultimate failure of the Democratic corporate elites that ran this whole program once they made Joe Biden sit down was that they did not say in uncertain terms, I guarantee you, I promise you, we will not give Israel another dime for committing genocide. And off of that alone, they would have had a great opportunity to close in on the amount of votes they needed. Now, there's a lot of other little details in this that will come out as we do an analysis of what the exit polls were and what the real numbers were. Clearly, there is, with the Republican Party, there's been skullduggery for ever since the Republican Party has been so neo-corporate themselves, and also wanting to marginalize people of color when it comes to voting because they know they traditionally vote Democrat. This is one of the reasons why people that are in the Postal Service have made reports about flat sorter machines going down. These flat sorter machines are the machines that actually run these mail-in ballots. There's a lot of mail-in ballots that probably still have not really been counted because they come from the military. And my expectation was for it to go a little bit longer before concession. But of course, the corporate Democrats being who they are, they kowtow almost immediately because they're figuring out the next way in which they're going to lie to people and tell them how they're going to do something good when they're not. The Republicans don't even bother to lie to you because they don't care about you. They want to take whatever little that you have left away from you. And there's a lot of corporate Democrats that feel the same way, so they just give you lip service. You know, since the Obama administration, when you look at it in an analytical way, there's a lot of things that were incrementally done. And Obama himself said that things are not going to change overnight. You know, you gotta play the game of incrementalism. I say that you've got to come and push hard to get what it is you want. And my hat is off to the MAGA psychopaths who are not very smart, don't care about our systems, don't care about a lot of different things that are important to a democracy. But you got to take your hat off to the intensity of shoving the stupidity down everybody's throat. And there's a lot of ways to factually deal with that, but you got to come as hard as they come. And the group of people that we thought we were going to do is the people that you have not heard from at all, and that's the people in the squad. And two of them are already gone because of AIPAC money that is, foreign money getting pushed through so-called Israeli American citizens, which a lot of them have dual citizenship and what have you, but it's really a foreign power is controlling way too much of all your decision-making processes in a lot of different areas, not just in your politics, but in your banking, in corporate areas of the country, pharmaceutical, you name it, there's somebody there, certainly in media. And that's how you could have the crazy interview that was with Tony Kupo, or whatever his name was, on CBS at Ta-Nehisi Coates, where this guy was basically accusing him of being some kind of anti-Semite because he's pointing out the fact that Zionism and the apartheid system is born out of that Zionism. And he didn't even use the word Zionism. I wish he should have, considering what this man was saying. I believe there's many Israeli people that are totally against this, but their voices are being outshouted by these other individuals that are not only making money, but they actually love the death and destruction. And you could say, and you could think that you like this death and destruction until the bombs start falling on your house, when your power goes out, to all the things. War is horrible, and war is absolutely something that the whole world doesn't want. And again, the Democratic Party had an opportunity to really distinguish themselves with this candidate and say, the relationship that Joe Biden had with Mr. Netanyahu is not going to be the relationship that I'm going to have. I know the whole world is against it, and I personally am offended by the deaths and the manner in which this military program is going down. And if I become president of the United States, the first order of business is that all monies to Israel get shut off. And for that matter, Ukraine, until we can get everybody to the negotiation table and find the best way to end both of these before it pushes us into a World War III. That was what was supposed to be said. It was not said, and you failed miserably. And there's a great irony that people that voted for Obama voted for Trump. And it's a great irony that Trump has managed to fool all the MAGA people out there into thinking that he's a populist. The best that you could hope for going forward is that, one, court proceedings will tie up anything they try to do with 2025. That program is just us going backwards to some kind of weird Jim Crow, Nazi party, fascist deal that just lets the elites do whatever they want while they clamp down on people. And there's a lot of people that don't understand how the government overall works. So you got the Bureau of Land Management, you got the Department of Education, which Trump, by the way, has said more and over that he wants to get rid of altogether, which is absolutely ridiculous. These organizations need to be streamlined as far as money waste, but they need to have the smartest and brightest people to run them and run them effectively and independently. And recently there's this rule, and the name of it escapes me, but it basically kept the different departments of the government independent and not being able to be influenced by political connections. And that has gone away through this Leonard Leo Supreme Court that's been created over 20 years. You know, there's a lot to unpack, and you can start with the wealth transfers that have happened that are breaking the backs of working class people. 2007, no one went to jail, and I laugh because now I see Bank of America commercials, and Bank of America, according to the article that was in Rolling Stone that was written by the great Matt Taibbi, they were writing mortgages that they knew were bad. And then you can turn around and you got a company like Goldman Sachs that is being interviewed in an investigation by the great Carl Levin, where he's asking one of these executives from Goldman Sachs, when did you know that this was a bad product? Then he has internal memos saying it was a bad product. So that's 2007. Prior to that, you had the savings and loan fiasco that took place in the 90s, where farmers were realizing that they couldn't take care of their land and couldn't continue to farm. Some of these men were going and killing themselves because of it. Prior to that, you had Ivan Boesky and Michael Milken and Junk Bond King. And in the process of that, we go into 2001, have the quote-unquote worst terrorist event that we've ever had, which was more than likely, we're going to find out 100 years from now, when everybody's dead and gone, that it was state-sponsored terrorism. And the two states we were supposed to look at was the obvious one, Saudi Arabia, but we also were supposed to look at Israel and the Zionists that are there. And they have had more machinations into screwing up the United States, its international standing, its policies, while sapping it of its money, because you're turning around because Israel is so important to the United States. You got to give them, what, $38 billion every year. And my understanding is that the people there, because some of them have, so many of them are dual citizens, that I saw a thing where they say that 2 million of them are already left the country. And I don't know, what is Israel's population? What is it? 10, 12 million at best. I don't know. But it's pretty significant that there's capital flight going on, and you're at a point now where you could possibly collapse your economy because of your bloodthirsty need within the people in your regime and people that are running the show, and the people in the Knesset are not putting their foot down to Netanyahu and the other Zionists and try to bring some stability back to the area. And it's costing you so much. Even though you had an apartheid system, you had somewhat level of functionality, but the Palestinians was your low-level labor force. And now you have no one to do those jobs. So what are you going to do? Import people from India that are poor to come there and take the place of the Palestinians so you can mistreat them as well? At a certain point, you have to have, and I think this is for all world governments, a world view of what's good for the world. And I think there's a lot of people, because they have suffered through war, whether the 2 nuclear bombs that we dropped in Japan, to the World War I and World War II so close together in Europe. People have a reasoning, and the history books have not been purged of the destruction. And that's a problem if you try to get rid of the Department of Education, because you don't want people to know. And there's a lot that's not known about the suffering of African American people in this country. And the real fact that if you really do a hard data research and analytically look at births and deaths within the Black community in America, there's been every possible way that you could think of to eliminate the Black population. And now they have brilliantly made it so that young Black men that live in poor communities, undereducated, underserved, without any generational wealth, with poor educational systems that are only going to get worse, and flooded with guns, flooded with illegal drugs. You have a very volatile combination of factors that now you got ghost guns being printed. You have no really serious gun laws that are on the books that would stop these guns from getting to the community, because without that tool, you might have to consider some other thing that you would need to do, which might end up being work. There's a complete and utter collapse and failure of the traditional Black organizations, where it's the Black Congressional Caucus politically, where it's the Southern Baptist Coalition and Black Church coalitions, to the Urban League, to the NAACP, and to a host of other organizations. They need to go and have an emergency meeting, have everyone come together and combine their resources to flood these communities with the possibility of getting job training, to come to whoever's the president, no matter who he is, with a solid, rock solid plan to fund these areas. You say you don't like crime, well then prove it and put money into these communities so that we can reverse these trends that are taking place there and make a safer and more viable communities across the United States. You know, I went on vacation in 2008 to Jamaica, and I met a wonderful gentleman. Shout out to the great Michael Schlesinger and his family. I wish him the very best. I haven't seen that man from 2008, but I talked to him occasionally on Facebook. The amazing guy. And he said to me, he says, "Oh, Mike, I'm here on holiday." And I'm like, yeah, that's like a national thing. Matter of fact, it's throughout the whole EU. You got a comprehensive health program in Canada. All the G7 nations have it, and the only people that don't have it is the world's richest nation. We need to shut down the production of weapon systems. We need to close down bases around the world. We need to have an actual plan for really developing our infrastructure. We need to be able to deal with ELEs, extinction level events that are all around us, because I think people are so short-sighted. All they see is the end of their nose, whether the rich billionaire, even a guy like Elon Musk. Your job is to try to do something that's positive for humanity, and you're prancing around, jumping around on the stage. You go and you buy X, you waste $450 million on some other project. You're losing your focus, sir. You're a brilliantly smart guy. You got a brilliantly smart group of people, but sometimes people drink their own urine and think it's Kool-Aid, and they eat their own excrement and think it's cake. And almost all these people out here that I see that are in these positions of authority that don't do the right thing for regular people are in this space. And that's what makes what Bernie has to say about the Democratic Party, about the whole system overall, very powerful. And if you just do a little bit of reading, you see it. You see this failure of responsibility. And if you follow the American history from Industrial Revolution all the way across, I actually saw a thing, an article online where the guy was talking about universal health care was discussed in the 20s and 30s, especially after the Depression. And a lot of people were adamantly against it because they didn't want to materially help black people. So they would rather see a whole bunch of white people die and not be healthy because they didn't want to see this relatively small part of their population then and now. Because between the Ronald Reagan, Contra, Iran-Contra cocaine that came to the United States, that the black American population has still not been compensated for. Compensated because they were targeted by our organizations, our intelligence organizations, and an administration that has done so much damage. This is the reason why we have now the babies that were born of these men that were in and out of prison or were killed, and the ones that survived have a whole group of kids that are even worse than what they were and worse off. And then when you look at the economic situation, they'll say, when you listen to CNN or any of the mainstream media, oh, you know, unemployment is at 7%, or it's at 8%, or it's at 5%, or it's at 4%. Anybody that knows anybody that lives in the black community, this usually double or triple that in the black community. And it's just this hidden thing that takes place that pulls the black community down and other poor communities as well. Because believe me, one of the things that the powers that be hated about Martin Luther King was that he went to Appalachia and he basically explained to them in a very nice way of saying it. He didn't use the N word in the bad way. He just said, you guys are Negroes too. Because it has less to do with race at the end of the day than it does about where you are economically. And there's a group of people that believe that whatever little bit that an average American working person has, like a home, like a car, maybe you shouldn't have that, or you have to rent it from them, where you won't have but a very little finite space in which you can move in. And you won't be able to flex once the currency becomes digital, because now if you're saying something that someone does not like and they are in power, they can just press a keystroke and now you can't pay your bills. So that is the 1984 version of where we're headed. And voting is simply not enough. Now it's about meeting with people in your community, talking about what people should be candidates, vetting those candidates, taking money out of politics, working towards politicians that are going to get rid of these ancient bloodsuckers that are on both sides, whether it's Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. And if you do any due diligence on Rick Scott, and I believe he just won in Florida, that was a guy that was running a medical health group and defrauded Medicare out of $1.2, $1.5 billion allegedly. So there's a lot to unpack, and we are in it now because you got exposed in a lot of ways. And until you decide, and this is either side, you know, the Republicans seem so far away from ever thinking about helping the regular Joe that I just think it's impossible to have a person that says they're conservative and say that they actually would go along with, you know, Medicare for all, a robust Social Security system, a robust Medicare system. And the funny part of it is if you go out there and you meet the average American that has worked all their life and they're collecting Social Security, you know, and I don't know if Trump will actually do this, you know, he never seems to have a real plan. He just says vagaries, and then looking at what he did in 2016 to 2020, all he did was add 8-point-something trillion dollars to the deficit. Your tax rate, corporate tax rate, went from to 27% or 29%. Now he wants to make it 20%. And you can't keep fueling all the things that you send money to. And I'm talking about whether it's in Israel, Ukraine, the military bases, and all that you do, and not have something robust for people here. And if you continue in the way that you're going to see the true collapse of the American system. And in all reality, you know, there's a big threat in the financial market with BRICS. I'm still completely unconvinced about Bitcoin, but, you know, I still want to believe that currency and the dollar currency could be really good. I think that there may come a time that if you could stabilize South America, and Argentina's economy is in free fall right now. Venezuela is not that much better, but if you could bring that together, then maybe something that was similar to what happened with the euro. On my understanding, going back over 20 years ago, there was conversation of something called the Amero. That might be something that you could do to switch it over and kind of unify these economies, but way down the road. Right now, we need a stabilization. We need to have an actionable plan between any parties, and hopefully a third party can develop that would say, hey, you know what, we're going to move in a direction to stabilize the American economy and to absolutely help those who are at the lowest level, to bring them up to a certain level of standard. You know, I watched a video of Hollywood Boulevard, and these people were obviously on drugs. They were bent over. I actually saw, which was frightening, a baby carriage, and both people were just laying on the ground. I don't even know if there was a baby there. We have malls that are closed now. We have money to send over to these countries. Stop sending the money over to these countries and build a new and robust, multi-factored processing area for people that are on the street, where they can have a place to stay. They can be medically evaluated. They can be psychologically evaluated. You could have people there to help teach them, reintegrate them into society. Denver, and I want to follow up on this, I only heard just a little bit about it, but last year, Denver cut their budget in half for helping the homeless by turning around and giving people $1,000 stipends over an X period of time. They got up on their feet and they were able to start working. Because you have some people who are working homeless. They live out of their cars, they work and have a job, but they cannot afford to have a home and pay for their car and do their job. They have to do their job and live out of their car and try to bank their money to pay for any existing bills they have, or pay for their car, pay for their gas. They have to close that footprint. We have buildings across the United States, especially in California, that should be converted into smaller places, but also have those support systems. we got young people who need jobs. And perhaps those jobs could be a partnership between government agencies, but also private agencies to help with the medical needs of these people on the street. To have a redefined mental health system in the United States. My understanding is that one of the principal guys who always is celebrated, such a great guy, but the more data you look on the Ronald Reagan presidency, the more that you can see how we got from the trickle-down economy, and David Stockman being his economist, who said years later that the trickle-down economy was ridiculous and it didn't work. And we could have told you then when you were telling us, David, and now 15, 20 years later, you tell us in a book or on a podcast how what we already knew. But now the trickle-down economy of those times, all those people, Newt Gingrich and all those individual people that brought us to where we are today, all had a hand in sucking something out of our ability to help the most vulnerable in our communities. And now you see the guy who helped to tank the $3.5 trillion part of the soft infrastructure bill that the cowards that are called the Squad allowed to be decoupled and didn't hold to their position, because even that could have been a game changer for a $300 child tax credit and a host of other things that were in that $3.5 trillion package. And certainly a country that's as advanced and well educated as Israel doesn't need us to send them, who knows what the number is. I'm going to say probably 40 billion for the last 20 years. And if you add that all up, you're probably closing into $500 billion that should have been used here in the United States and in these areas of vulnerability. I could go on all night, but I just wanted to kind of touch base on the patheticness of the Democratic Party, and they have only themselves to blame for losing to Donald Trump the first time in 2016, because they ripped off all these young people that had came in for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was the guy. Donald Trump even said himself out loud, hey, the only guy that scares me is Donald Trump, because he would not have been able to shine a candle to that man. He would have did 2 terms. And now, because you have built over a 2-term period a solid base in which to operate from, we don't have the war going on, or we're not financing that war. And I already heard from a general that's a high-level general in the IDF that says if America puts their foot down and stops financing us, stops sending us weapons and money, this war will be over. It's that simple. And probably the same thing goes for Ukraine. We need to scale back this operation. There's a lot of dirt under everyone's fingernails when it comes to that, whether it's whatever the Podesta brothers were doing over there in the 2014, 2015, whatever Mike Flynn and Roger Stone was doing over there in that time, whatever it was that Hunter Biden was doing by being on the board of Burisma. There's dirt there, and that's pretty obvious dirt for both sides of influence peddling. And also pressing the button of Mr. Putin and the Russian people, because now you know that this area is considered the breadbasket of Europe, by the way, is the Ukraine. And this is about taking over that, or at least having control over it. Zelensky, by all standards in Russia, is considered an American puppet. But the cost to Ukraine, the cost to business, the cost to normalcy is not worth the price. And we have to scale this back. And if you want to ever listen to this in detail, to a guy who really knows about it, you would look up Jeffrey Sachs. And Jeffrey Sachs has made quite a few interviews regarding this over the last 5, 6, 7 years. He's a guy who I think worked in the Department of State. And there's some really smart, highly capable people that are out in the sphere. And a lot of times those people more often than not work on the Democratic side than on the Republican side. But there are some very smart people in the past who have also worked on the Republican side. They know the truth of the matter. But until we stop letting corporations and banks and military industrial complex lobbyists write policy that no one in the United States wants. There's a laundry list of things that are policies that people agree on. That's your first order of business, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, an independent, Green Party, whatever you are. You should be following what it is that people want. If you're in the business of being a public servant, a civil servant, then you're supposed to do what people want. And somehow or another, this has got twisted to you only wanting to do things for the Larry Finks, the Peter Thiels, the George Soros, all the other billionaires, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. It goes on and on and on. And those people, their vote should not outweigh mine or yours or any regular person. One vote, one person, one American. And do the right thing, and to try to help us to evolve into something better, because the only difference between us and the Roman Empire is probably the fact that we got computers and we got jets and what have you. But other than that, the material difference inside the person's soul, for a lot of people that are at the very top of the money pyramid, is as equally as dirty, as greedy, and as malignant as it's ever been in the history of humanity. And unless we fundamentally change that, we're going to get the same result over and over again. And I don't know, you know, this moment in time of speaking to this, I didn't think that at my age that I would ever see a moment in time where it was so bad, and for lack of a better word, you know, just horrifically bad. And every element of what I would expect for the betterment of the earth, I just think a lot of people that are in positions of authority are not thinking clearly or wisely. And they certainly don't have our long-term health, mentally, emotionally, ideologically, to our environment, to any aspect and any metric of human existence is basically unimportant to them as long as they can cash the check. And we have to break away from that, you know. I told someone jokingly, but I really wasn't joking. Why in the hell do you think that all the alien species that may be on this planet, and there's some people that think that it's 5, some think it's 2, some think it's more than 20 that have been here since maybe the beginning of time in some form or fashion, that are class 1, class 2, class 3, possibly class 4 beyond civilizations. Why would they talk to us? It's like you running to try to have a conversation, and I hate to do this because they might even be smarter and better than us. A monkey or an ant. You know, we have a lot to change in order to have sustainability and to have vitality and to have a earth level evolvement that will put us into the stars. We're not going to make it there with these methodologies. The methodology of always having war is a broken model that has to be shut down. The production of all these weapons, from small arms to nuclear weapons, It has to change. We need to take our technological advances and put them in other important areas. Seawalls, a defensive shield for this planet, an electromagnetic shield, if you will, that might protect this planet from ELEs, extinction level events, from a giant comet, an asteroid. This stuff is buzzing around this planet and has been ever since our existence. And we've had our moments where we came close to not existing at all. So I'm going to hope and pray that somehow, some way, the younger people that are coming up in this world take on the yoke of responsibility and take away the ability of people who are well off to make poor decisions for society. Because that is the reason that we lost this election. Mr. Obama, the Clintons, they needed to stand aside and support Bernie Sanders 100% in 2016, and then once again in 2020. And it's almost a guarantee, had they put their energy behind him, that we'd be in a much better place right now in 2024 than what we are, or what we may be going forward. And again, for the Trump administration, I just hope and pray that there are some people in there that are not completely out of their friggin' minds and will make decisions that will be beneficial to our standing in the world and also to our working class, middle class people here that deserve much better than they've gotten in the last 30 to 40 years. With that, all I can say is peace out. And I pray to God with all my heart that somehow or another we can wake up before it's too late.